So how did you direct and guide your family when COVID came? So, and what made you question masking?
So the way I initially dealt with the situation was like, well, we're not changing our life one bit. I'm not going to let this affect how we operate as a family and what we do. Of course, the world decided to operate a different way, and we had to, it did change for us. But we were very open with our kids, and we talked to them about what was going on in the world and why all of their neighborhood friends are wearing masks and why we don't wear masks. And we were just very open, like, this is what's going on. And every family is going to choose differently, but here's what we're doing.
And what was your reason for not wearing a mask?
It was a lot of reasons. Initially, one of the reasons is because they're telling me to do it, the government. And it's like, no. Like, we don't do something just because they tell us to do it. There has to be a good reason why. And wearing a mask is like, in my mind, it was just evil. It felt so wrong. It went against everything in my being to cover my face, the part of me that makes me human, the part that shines the light of Christ to others. And that was really hard for me to comprehend. Why would you tell me I have to cover my face? Robbers do that. Criminals do that. Men who do violence against women do that to other women. That is not something I want to be a part of, and I will not allow my kids to be a part of that either. And so it was this like overwhelming sense of this feeling of like, I cannot be a part of this. This is not right. Does not feel like it's from God. At the same time, I understood that some people, close friends and family were going to decide to do this, but I saw right from the get-go that this was not something that was good, and I didn't want to be a part of it.
And so you mentioned that you told your children we're not going to do this, but you were in Rhode Island at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how did you get by all of the requirements for masking?
Just didn't do it and dealt with the backlash that came with it. It was, in the beginning, it was a lot of winter, cold time, so we weren't really doing a whole lot, but I refused to let that stop us. So some places wouldn't let you go in without a mask, but I would go shopping. I would take my daughter with me. I would get yelled at by store managers. I would kind of yell back. I would reason with some of them sometimes, and it was a good conversation in the end. And sometimes it ended up being pretty positive, but yeah, it was just a lot of negative and positive experiences that we had to just deal with. And it was opened up a lot of communication between us and our kids, and it was nice. That was a good thing.
Did you find a community around you that thought similarly, or were you kind of a lone family?
Yes, we did have a good community. We had two really great families that lived in our neighborhood that we've known for years. It was such a blessing. They were close friends. Our kids were friends. So while the whole rest of the neighborhood stayed in their house and never came out, our kids were outside playing with each other. We would come over to each other's houses and play board games all night and have movie nights, and we just had our own little party for that whole several months, and it was really, really fun. Although not everyone was where Rob and I were, with a lot of people we knew and friends in our community even would mask their kids so that they would be able to be a part of, go to the zoo or go to these different groups and different things that they wanted to be a part of. But so they would make compromises. No one was really exactly like we were that was close to us during Rhode Island. It was just kind of, we were the only ones who would never mask our kids and never be mask in public or anything. So yes and no.
So tell us the story of the mask in the voting polls.
Okay. At the time, we were kind of in full swing mask mode, right? Everywhere was masking. It was really a intense time. Tensions were just high. And I was going to the stores and confronting these, they would confront me and then I would have to confront them back. And it was just like, no.
And what would you say to them when you spoke back to them?
Well, it was something like they'd say, oh, do you need a mask? Here, I have one for you. And I said, oh, no, thank you. I don't need one. And they just look at you really confused because they don't have anybody refuse. And they're like, well, you have to wear one. I said, oh, I have to? Is that a law? Where does it say that I have to? They're like, well, it's the sign on the door. It says it's policy now. I said, oh, well, actually, under law, you can't refuse me service. I'm allowed to shop in your store. And the one manager that I was talking to got really upset, and he started getting really emotional. And he just was like, well, it's not fair. I have to go in here and work, and I have to wear a mask 8 hours a day, and it's terrible, and it's hot, and we don't like it, but we have to do it. And I said, I am so sorry that happened to you. That's a shame. You should not have to do that. And he goes, yeah, we shouldn't have to do that. And then he just kind of like calmed down and was like, yeah, this is wrong. We shouldn't have to do this. And he just needed to vent or something. But once I was like, wow, I am so sorry you have to go through that. Like he switched from attacking me to feeling like, yes, you understand me. And it was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So we were in full swing of all of that, confronting everywhere I go, and had to gear up. Every time I went out somewhere, I'm like, okay, I'm going out. This is what they're going to say. This is what I kind of practiced in my head ahead of time. So I'd be kind of prepared for whatever came at me. And so I was doing that a lot. Whereas Rob was going to work where he didn't really have to wear a mask that much because his boss wasn't in very often. And so it was he was able to keep his environment kind of contained in that way. And he would come home and then, go back to work. And so he didn't really have a lot of those confrontational opportunities that I did in the beginning. And he doesn't like confrontation. Not a lot of people do. I don't either, but I'm a stubborn, very obstinate person. And so I'm going to push back, but he doesn't like to do that. And so we had discussed voting and how we're seeing, they're really pushing mail-in votes, and that's dangerous. And we saw that happening. We didn't want to be really a part of that. And I was like, yeah, we can't do that. We have to go vote. So we had made this plan. He would come home for lunch. We were going to go out to vote. And he had said, he kind of like got out, was like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll just, I don't think I want to go. Maybe I'll just mail in my vote. I was like, you coward, So it was kind of this emotional response, because here I was sitting in the car ready to go. And I was geared up. And I was like, I know what I'm going to do. They can't deny me my right to vote. I'm not going to allow it. So I was ready to go. And he just was like, got overwhelmed or whatever in the moment and was like, maybe I'll just, mail in my vote. I was like, what? No, we're not. No. And so I was like, you coward, I can't handle this. So I was like, bye, see ya, I'm going. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And then it ended up being worse for him because I went first, and it was in the town hall city place. And it was all these, women working the polls, and they were like, oh, you have to have a mask. I was like, no, thank you. And they got really mad. They were not happy. And I said, no. And I just kept walking past them. And they said, no, you have to. I said, no, I don't. And I kept going. And finally, they were so confused and overwhelmed because, again, nobody says no, right? It's so rare. So they didn't know what to do with me. And so they just were like, oh, well, I have to go talk. They always say I have to go talk to someone else. They always have to go to someone else to see, what do we do with this person? And in the meantime, I'm doing my voting, I'm just going to go do my thing. And then by the time then I went home, took over the kids, and he came. By that time, they were prepared. So he had a little rougher time doing it, but he did it. He voted, and it was fine. But I think they were more prepared by the time he got there to deal with us rebels.